This is People I Know Show, a podcast about interesting people, personal growth, and being wrong. I'm Curt Carstensen. It is episode number 45 today, and my guest is Ryan Vaz. Ryan and I go back nearly 20 years, as he was one of my first ever bosses. He was the general manager of the Alexandria Beetles baseball team of the Northwoods League during the 5 seasons that I was that team's play-by-play announcer. In the conversation today, we talk about some of our history together and what's happened in his life since then. He's since been running a team in Willmar, Minnesota, and having great success. I think through the conversation, you'll get a pretty good understanding of why Ryan has been successful through some of his approaches and strategies in life. We'll get into topics related to weight and health, some of the fun promotions that Ryan's been involved with over the years, the unique way that Ryan sometimes leaves social gatherings that I've picked up on, as well as what Ryan thinks has been important within his personal growth, as well as the Being Wrong segment. Check out photos and video clips related to this episode and most episodes on the People I Know Show Facebook and Instagram pages, as well as the People I Know Show YouTube channel. Please feel free to reach out to me there as well. Now let's get into my conversation with my longtime friend and former colleague, Ryan Vaz. This is episode 45 of People I Know Show. Curt Carstensen here with Ryan Vaz, sitting outside of a cabin near Spicer, Minnesota. This is something kind of different, but we're trying it.
Hey, good to see you, Curt. Thanks for having me today.
Ryan, I saw you about a week ago for the first time. It must have been 2 or 3 years. And before that, it might have been a year or two. We worked together nearly 20 years ago. And I was thinking about that today, trying to think back to how you've been important in my life, how you've been influential. Before we get into that, do you remember me from, it might have been 2002, the first time you saw me, the first few interactions? What did you think of me?
Yeah, I thought of that today, too, as you were on your way here. And I was thinking Sam Morris was the play-by-play guy through the radio station in Long Prairie in 2001. So I was thinking it had to have been 2002. And you were a student at Alec Tech or right out of high school. I mean, literally 18, 19 years old, and as green as they got from right out of the gates. But you were with us for 6 or 7 years with the Alexandria Beetles, and it's crazy to think that. But yeah, 2002, and we're looking at 17, 18 years that we've known each other.
My time with the Beatles as the play-by-play announcer ended up totaling 5 years, 2002 through 2006, and you were the general manager of the team. And as I think to how you've influenced me, you were maybe not my first boss, but you were one of my first bosses, and the first one that I had this extended relationship with where we worked together. It was mostly just the summer and interaction a little bit during the rest of the year, but we worked together for 5 straight summers where I would talk to you or see you a lot all the times that the team was at home and I was traveling with the team. So probably most of those days we'd interact as well. And that's something I hadn't experienced. You're an outside person. You are in charge and you're my boss. But I felt like for the most part, we had a really good, friendly relationship where because somehow maybe my duties were different, you didn't look at me as maybe the same person as some of the other people that came through and worked, especially those that were only there for 1 year.
Yeah, no, it's, I was trying to think back currently, and things really haven't changed a whole lot. I mean, we've never really seen ourselves as a boss, so to speak. There's many tasks that need to be taken care of over the course of the summer, and we throw ourselves in the trenches because we're not any better than anybody else. We know that it will build good relationships with the interns or the part-time staff that come back, whether it's the play-by-play guy or whether it's the promotional intern, whoever it may be. And that's kind of how our philosophy has been in the Northwoods League, is to try to treat everybody in our staff the same. And in your position, that's one of those roles that we couldn't really jump in and do. So we valued you from a standpoint that you had something that we couldn't do. You knew the tech, the stat side to it, the play-by-play side to it, and we were just happy every year to be able to get you back 1 year after another for consistency, but also, let's face it, to try to keep things a little easier on us in terms of having to rehire somebody every single summer, and you were passionate about it. So it was fun to be able to have somebody that was that engaged for that number of years.
And it was fun to be there all those years in the amount of different people that come through each season. So we haven't gotten into this in detail yet in this conversation. This is summer collegiate baseball in the Northwoods League, and at that time it was the Alexandria Beetles, a team that doesn't exist anymore, and It's a team that you had such a big part of creating and all the ideas that came with it, and now it's totally gone for several years. But within this realm, college baseball players from throughout the country, and I guess a few cases international, I think that does happen, come in and play every day for 2.5 months, 60 plus, 70 plus games now. And the life that we lived during those summer months isn't a life unlike anything I've ever been involved in. And now we're talking here a week after the season ends, and it's a totally different life. Just explain that lifestyle. Now you're 20 years into it to someone that just wouldn't have never heard of it before. Yeah, no,
it's crazy. It's every year it's kind of like Groundhog's Day in terms of what happens. You spend the entire off season preparing for the upcoming season, which is very short, in 36 home games, 36 road games. You play 72 games in a 75, 76 day window. And you talk about the people that have come through. I love thinking about former players' names and the numbers that they wore, and the former interns that worked for us and where have they gone, and if they're still engaged within the organization, because it comes very fast and furious for a matter of 10 to 12 weeks, and then it comes to a screeching halt. And so this is the time of the year where it's almost, we talked about it as a twilight zone, but you go from having 36, you got 30 ball players, 3 coaches, 25 part-time staff that are working at the ballpark, 8 to 10 interns, 30 host families in the community, and the next thing you know, it comes to a screeching halt. And you often wonder if there's still people in town, or did they all leave and go back to their colleges and they've traveled across the country. And sure enough, at the end of the day, it's still our primary staff of 3-4 people that are here. Just this morning, I'm thinking, Justin King, I wonder if he's still in town, a player that was with us from Alabama. The guy's been gone since last Friday when we lost to Eau Claire, and here we are 5-6 days later. And everybody carries on with their life, but we continue to, prepare for the next year. And so it's very odd from that standpoint. But for the last 21 years, I've been able to, I guess, make it through 21 seasons in the Northwoods League, which I would have never guessed was ever going to be the case. But now it's hard to imagine what it would be like without it. When thinking about the Northwoods League or minor league baseball in general, I think there's a lot of ways to kind of attack this conversation. But I think for brevity, we'll focus on you and your experience. I worked with you directly on the same team in the same organization for 5 years. And then I had a position in the Northwoods League office for the next 6 summers, I think. So for about half of your time in the league, I would either talk to you basically every day or fairly regularly in the other role. And the other half of it now, your first couple years and the last 7-8 years, I'm out of the loop. I don't really know what goes on. But you've been doing it for 21 years. Yeah. Can you place yourself back in the late 1990s? Did you decide at that point that you wanted to try to be in baseball for 20 years, or what were you thinking? Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's crazy. It comes down, it seems like, and I'm sure it's more than this, but it seems to come down to, for me, to one conversation, and I'm sure it was more than that, but the conversation I had with Joe Schwei in 1998 when I was an intern in the Northwoods League. And the Northwoods League had just started in 1994. And so this was its 4th year of existence. And he had mentioned to me that said, you know what, if you want to be in baseball the rest of your life, this is something you can do. And I didn't really understand. And he said, you know what, there's a lot of things that you could do over the course of your lifetime, a lot of different jobs that you could have. But the league is so new that you could be a part of this thing for a long time and kind of be one of the grandfathers of the Northwoods League from a staff standpoint, if this is what you really wanted to do. And he said, you're not going to make a ton of money. You're going to sacrifice every single summer of your life, but I could sure think of a lot worse ways to make a living. than operate, and run a baseball team. And if you, over the matter of time, you might even have an opportunity to own your own team from that standpoint. So I was probably 22, 23 years old, and sports was fun. Getting a job in sports seemed cool, but I didn't really know what that meant. But that was the conversation that I took from that point on, and thought, boy, if I could do this, and at some point later in life, I could be proud of being involved in baseball and running baseball teams, I think I could get some satisfaction from that long term. And that's kind of where I guess we're at.
For the last 10 years, you've been a co-owner, and I guess that's the title you use now, but you're operating the team day to day, you and your longtime business partner, and I'd imagine still friends. You guys get along well after all these years. Mark Jerzak have been running this team in Willmar, Minnesota, which is a city of how many people?
Yeah, 18 to 19,000 people.
And I think, if I can recall back, the team that we were a part of together, the Alexandria Beetles, at some point needed to play a game somewhere else, or for some reason you came down here and played one game in Willmar, and that trial turned into the fact that this might actually work, and then suddenly you're owning a team, and I can tell from a lot of different angles as an outsider, it's been one of the most prosperous and successful teams in the league since then, in one of the, maybe it's still the smallest city.
Market,
small city out of 22 teams now?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. We had when I was in Alexandria as the general manager, the schedule came out, and I believe we were supposed to play 32 home games at the time, so it was a 64-game schedule. And we had 31 games that we were scheduled on the schedule. And I called the league president, and I said, maybe I'm counting the dates wrong here, but we only have 31 home games. And Dick Raditz's reaction was, well, the schedule that you gave us of the availability of the field was so difficult when we put together the schedule that we could only figure out a way to do 31 home games. So my solution would be is for you to play a day game on a Tuesday, Wednesday to figure out, to play a day game and play a doubleheader. And I didn't really want to, I think we had scheduled already one doubleheader for the season. I didn't want to schedule a second doubleheader. And so I started thinking about, what if we played in a nearby community? So I remember looking at Sauk Center. I remember the discussion of Fergus Falls. Anything that was 30 minutes to an hour away. Somebody that we might be able to engage with a new fan base. It might take some significant effort to be able to pull it off, but where could we go that was within proximity of Alexandria? And I remember I made the phone call to Dwight Cutilla, and Dwight Cutilla was the head baseball coach at Ridgewater College, who had recently just sent a couple players. One of them was a kid from BBE. I think he was actually from El Rosa, who was pitched up in Thunder Bay. And so Dwight had been sending a couple Ridgewater players into the league. And so he said, are you kidding me? I called him. I said, what's the ballpark in Willmar like? And I hadn't been to Willmar probably in 10, 20 years, maybe in high school to come watch a football game. And he said, you got to come check out the ballpark. They're redoing the entire facility. So I drove down from Alexandria to Willmar, approximately an hour, met with the city, went and looked at the ballpark, and sure enough, there was this cute ballpark that had 1,000 seats right behind home plate with a brand new grandstand, brand new concessions, bathroom, and it wasn't complete. And so I stopped in at City Hall, and they said, perfect, you want to play a game here? It'll force us to finish this project because it's been ongoing and ongoing. You tell us the date you want to play here, we'll put it on the calendar, and we'll have everything done and ready to go. And so that'll be our deadline as to when this project needs to be complete. So I remember, I think we picked a date late in June. Sure enough, we loaded up U-Hauls from Alexandria. We came down to Willmar. We promoted it as the Alexandria Beetles versus the Mankato Moondogs. Nobody had a clue what the heck the Northwoods League was. Nobody knew of the Beetles. Nobody knew of the Moondogs. So that was a challenge. Nobody really knew who to cheer for when they walked in. I remember we were handing out T-shirts as fans walked in, and they're asking, who should we cheer for? Because they were probably going to cheer for Mankato because Alexandria Cardinals, the high school team, and the Willmar Cardinals are a little rivalry. And so the last thing they probably wanted to do was cheer for an Alexandria team. So they were probably more inclined to cheer for Mankato. But luckily enough, during that game, Lucas Duda had the go-ahead hit or run scored late in the game, and who's now a major leaguer that was on that year's team in 2006. And next thing you know, the fans started cheering for Alexandria. And I believe we won 1-0, and everybody left, and it was a huge success. We had over 1,000 people at that night's game. And it was kind of like, barnstorming in another community and bringing minor league baseball to a different community. And we had huge success with it. So the franchise actually the next year played another game down here. But now we've just completely switched roles. Now we're here in Willmar, which, it was really a start of that game. We would have never probably put a franchise in Willmar had we not played that game down here and met the city officials and were introduced into the community. And so now, long and behold, Alexandria no longer has a franchise, but now we go to Alexandria every year and we take one of our home games and we play it in Alexandria, and we've just kind of flipped the role back to Alexandria, which is crazy. But and it's been a huge success playing one night up there as well.
And I was at, I think, the first one of those. That might have been the last time I saw you, actually, and that was, probably 3 or 4
4 years ago, yeah.
And I realized kind of from a distance, you're doing this every year, and then, I don't know, I don't get the invite anymore, I guess.
Right,
it's kind of time has gone on, and I could probably do my research as well. But anyhow, maybe at some point I'll make it back up to one of those, or even coming out here once a year is something that I enjoy doing. And, okay, so here we are. This is years later. I remember that day I was there, and John Haddon, who's been on a few of my episodes, was the broadcaster for the Mankato Moondogs at the time. Because of limited technology in 2006 in that press box, he and I did a broadcast together, which was kind of strange and kind of fun, as life has gone on, is one of my best friends. I was in his wedding last year. But for someone that's not related to all this and isn't a baseball person, so I'm talking to the listener, the viewer right now that doesn't really grasp this that well, what life lesson do you think you can pull out of that situation? Of all the life lessons you've learned, the fact that here you are 10 years into something that probably didn't seem like it ever could have come to be when you first drove down to Willmar that first time.
Yeah, no, I talked to Mark a little bit about this morning, and, the one thing which sounds crazy is, we reflect back on the last 10 years or the last 21 years, and so much of it is the attitude and the effort. And I joke about it, and I said, we'll have to stay in the Northwoods League forever because we're not very smart. I don't know what else we'd be able to do, but if you can continue to bring the right attitude and the right work ethic, at least from our standpoint, you can just about accomplish anything you possibly want to do. And it's amazing I was actually listening to a podcast last night about youth coaching and the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. And the first thing that they said was the fact of coaches being able to smile at their players. Like, things have changed. Like, if you're a youth baseball coach, you need to smile at kids that might be 9, 11, 15 years old. The old school coaching of a coach having this demeanor to him doesn't work. And so I think about our, Northwoods League experience in trying to engage people in the community and trying to treat them right. And it's all about the attitude. And when I left Alexandria, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I just remember people saying it becomes contagious. So how do you create something that people want to be a part of? And the only way to really equate to that is the attitude from a day-to-day basis, and trying to create a product that people want to have in their life. That's the biggest key.
From working with you, near you for 5 years, but I guess mostly it was the first 2 years I was just the radio guy for the radio station. So I'd show up at 5 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game and interact with you a little bit. So I guess the first couple of years we got to know each other through situations, but weren't as close. But the following 3 years when I was in the office all the time and communicating with you quite a bit, that's something I realized that, I don't know if I realized it at that time, but not a lot of people seem to have what you have, which is this energy, not only when you're around the different people that you're working with or coming across to be successful in that way, but the energy that seems to go from whatever time you're waking up in the morning, always living like an hour away from the place that you're working, and driving back at night, where your days are going, I don't know, it must be 17, 18, 20 hours sometimes, start to finish, from when you're waking up to when you're getting back at home. And maybe that's it. It's the way you interact with people, but also the willingness and desire to work that hard for those long hours, maybe just for 4 or 5 months a year to that degree, 3 months especially. but there's something to it that perhaps not everyone's figured out, that's what it takes to take something that I'm sure other people could have come here, started a team, and it would have failed miserably. Not everybody. Some other people might have made it succeed too, but I think it's those qualities that allow for this team and for you guys to be doing so well so many years into it.
Yeah, no, it's we had good mentors along the way in terms of how to run Northwoods League operations, but it's just the fan interaction, I think, more than anything, in treating those fans right. The willingness to go up and talk to strangers. I think a lot of people have a hard time with it, and I probably did years ago, but I now think it's kind of fun to go out of your way and try to strike up a conversation with somebody, show people who you actually are, and put yourself out there a little bit from that standpoint. And that becomes more and more comfortable over time. And when your backs are against the wall and you have, basically taken everything from your family and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to own and operate a business in Willmar, Minnesota. The pressure becomes pretty high and you have to perform. And in order to perform, you need fans, you need the engagement of businesses. And, every day that's the pressure that we're under. So
a microcosm of your success, at least the way you just described it there, I witnessed. It would have been at your home playoff game. We're recording this on a Tuesday, so a week ago from when we were recording this episode comes out this Friday. It was the bottom of the 8th inning in a very close game, in the game where if Willmar wins, you advance to the next round of the playoffs. And I'm standing around, you're chatting with myself and some others in that space late in the game, just kind of briefly, and then a fan comes through asking about the team picture, the team poster, which you must have given away at a recent game that he didn't get one, and he wanted one. But he and his mother were leaving. And what do you do, Ryan?
No, it was crazy because I remember it was this case where it was the bottom of the 8th or top of the 8th, like a tie game. And this guy, I recognized him. He was at a game a month ago, and I think he's from like Wahpeton, which is like over an hour away. And he said, have you taken the team poster? And I said, a team poster doesn't come out for another week, but call me at the office. I'll mail you a team poster. And I gave the guy my phone number. I never heard from him. Sure enough, a month later, he shows up to the ballpark. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Chad Miller. We're facing St. Cloud in the playoffs, and this guy approaches me and wants the team poster. And obviously, he's a fan. He matters. I can't be rude to him and tell him, hey, I can't do it tonight. I've got a whole stack of them sitting on my desk. And so, as tough as it was, I said, let's go to the office. And so, it's not right around the corner. I mean, I walked with him and his mom down to the office and found 2 posters and handed them to him, and then ran back to the ballpark so I could try to catch the bottom of the inning because I thought I could miss something. But it would have been easy for me to say, I'll mail you one. He was leaving, but the right thing to do was to get this guy 2 posters. And I remember we cut the conversation short, and but those are the decisions that I think over the years I have probably grown or gotten better at, that have, no matter what, we got to treat every one of these fans as if they're our only fans that we have. And this guy, I think I gave him 3 or 4 posters and told him to give them to friends down in Wahpeton because there was 100 of them sitting on my desk. And so hopefully I made his night.
And I'm pretty sure I watched you during this entire interaction. Or I probably looked back at him, but also just trying to see your reaction to it. And none of it fazed you, whether or not inside you're thinking, oh, why right now?
Right.
Which you probably were, because it's the timing.
A little bit, yeah.
The timing wasn't good. Nothing about the way you spoke or the way your facial expressions or mannerisms came off showed any bit of annoyance at the inconvenience of this timing of this. It's a request you're willing to grant always. It's just the timing is about as bad as possible. And you just did it. And
yeah, and it's one, it's the right thing to do, and 2, everything in this position or working in the league is about perception. So even though you're a friend of mine, and I've known Chad Miller for a long period of time, and as a friend of mine, it could have been easy for me to say, "Sorry, man, we can't do it tonight." but it's about perception. And whether it's you or whether it's some other fan that's standing there, you got to make the right decision, because I could have let him down, and then there could have been other people standing there that said, wow, that guy wasn't willing to go to the office to give him a team poster. Like, at all times in these positions, you are a little bit in a bubble for people to make opinions, and it's all about perception around you. So, it's probably one of the downsides to the job, is that no matter what you do, say, you can always be kind of scrutinized, and that you do have to make a lot of good decisions, I guess, along the way because of opinions of others. You can't go to a pub and have more than 2 beers because somebody's watching across the bar from where you're at. You can't show up at a restaurant with a T-shirt on during a home game. You got to have a polo shirt on. I mean, everything, it's amazing, that has to cross your mind as to the perception of who you are and what you're trying to do. So that was a prime example where you probably wouldn't have thought any less of me, but in the back of my mind, I thought, if I don't do the right thing here, it might come across as cold. And it was easy to go and do it. And so without those fans, we wouldn't have the franchise. And so that's what really matters.
And nothing about it surprised me. I think if I had a thought before I saw or heard your answer, I figured you would do it, because I've seen you in these types of situations before. And I suppose you and I understand the distance to your office, it's not a long ways, but you probably talked and walked with them for like 2 or 3 minutes on the way to the office, which is on the other side of the parking lot. Spent 2 minutes in the office grabbing the posters, and then they were out of sight, and you race back in another minute. So it might have taken 7 or 8 minutes, something like that. It's just, I think it's just really cool. And it for people trying to find ways to be successful in whatever they're doing, I'd imagine there's aspects of what you're describing about what you've done here that everybody can learn from. And I just kind of watching you again, I feel like I'm learning from you again.
I appreciate it. No, it's it's one of the things I think we set forward 10 years ago, is we said that, we are never going, and I'm sure we're not loved by 100% of the people, but we were going to do everything we possibly can to try to, whether people like the Northwoods League or like the Willmar Stingers, we were going to make it very difficult for them not to like us as people, because we were going to try to treat everybody right. And that was a goal. And I think it's been fun doing it that way. And we've had a lot of fans that have come through the ballpark in 10 years that have experienced something pretty cool that they wouldn't have had Northwoods League Baseball not been in Willmar. So we're pretty fortunate.
It's 20 plus years, and you're still relatively young. What, 40s?
Yeah, 44.
44. You look as good as ever. You seem like you're as healthy as ever. I mean, from the outside, I guess I don't know what you got going on, but you're in good shape. And that's something I guess I wanted to talk to it about at some point. So let's just do it now briefly. We can circle back. Is when I first met you, you were, not a huge guy, but you were probably somewhere in the first couple of years that I knew you at your, like, the heaviest weight and maybe the least focus on your health at any point in your life would be my guess. And now for the last 10 plus years that I've known you, you've always seemed like that's been a focus.
Yeah, no, it's so easy. I mean, just like anything in life in terms of where the priorities are and how do you balance things in life? And if you don't really try to make things a priority, it's pretty easy to become lax. And I mean, my weight has gone 30 pounds up, 30 pounds down. The lifestyle in the summer is crazy. And so, my back hurts during the summer. I mean, believe it or not, 21 years into the Northwoods League, it's taken me a while, but I've just started to realize that the summers are more enjoyable if you can get more rest and you're in better shape, and your body doesn't hurt and your mental health is better because of all of those things. It's more enjoyable for the summer.
When did you figure this out?
A few years ago.
Okay.
But no, I look back at it. I mean, I was boss hog for the Dukes of Hazzard night in Alexandria, and I see pictures, and I wasn't close to the size of boss hog, but I'm like, I probably played the right character when we dressed up as a staff. If there was anybody that was going to be boss hog, it was me. And I'm in this white suit with this white, like, bucket hat, cowboy hat from boss hog in the Dukes of Hazzard when we had James Best. And I'm just like, I need to make some changes. But as you know, the years go by, it's last summer I said the next summer I'm going to be in better shape than I was this summer because it's got to be easier. And so, believe it or not, you become a veteran in the league, you have to try to change things as well in order to make them more enjoyable in the summer.
You mentioned James Best, Dukes of Hazzard. I hadn't even thought about this as a topic for a conversation today, but being in a minor league baseball setting for as long as you have been, there's some interesting promotions that you need to come up with to, I think, just kind of keep it lively and fresh for the people that come out all the time, but also there's people that came to the night of Dukes of Hazzard night that probably never went to another Alexandria Beetles game, never cared. They liked Dukes of Hazzard, and that was a reason for them to buy a ticket one time and to buy a hot dog and a beer or whatever else they did. Through the years of coming up with promotions, are there one or two that you're most proud of or stand out the most in your memory?
No, there's a lot of them that are pretty cool, and that's part of it. Like when I kind of reflect back, I can just I can start to laugh thinking about all the different crazy things that have happened. But Roscoe and I got to be pretty good friends over the years. Like there was a stretch of 4 or 5 years where I was helping him get appearances in the Northwoods League, and he was making money off dressing like his character from the Dukes of Hazzard and traveling around Northwoods League teams. He was probably one of the best. Then, James Best. And then the other one would have been Icky Woods. We had Icky Woods for a night at the ballpark in Willmar where we took all the fans out of the stands that wanted to, and he taught everybody how to do the Icky Shuffle on the field. And we stopped the game, and every Willmar Stinger player wore a Cincinnati Bengals number 30 jersey, and he taught everybody how to do the Icky Shuffle. And slam the football and spike the ball after a touchdown like he did in the Super Bowl. And so that's a fun one. The William Hung was probably one of my favorites, the guy that was originally from American Idol that was so bad that he became so popular and that we brought him in to Brainerd and
the She Bangs guy from American Idol in the early years.
And he was a hit. I think about Sergeant Slaughter that we brought in as an old AWA wrestler that came in. Even guests like we had this year, we had Dwyer Brown, who was the father of Kevin Costner in the movie Field of Dreams, and did a 30th anniversary night where the players came out of the corn in the outfield at the ballpark. And he was the gentleman that was in the movie. And so we had, an actor that was here to sign books and take pictures and talk about that movie taking place in Dyersville, Iowa. So that was a fun one. So each year, I think about Bob Feller, the oldest living Hall of Famer, coming to Alexandria. An old curmudgeon, probably the crabbiest guy I've ever met in my life, who I was paying to throw out a first pitch. And he was nice to the fans. And then as soon as the fans left, he was crabby behind closed doors. And I thought, why are we paying this guy? But he was Bob Feller, the oldest living Hall of Famer in Alexandria. That was cool at the time. So all of the opening night guests, all the former big leaguers that have been back, but also kind of the other B list of characters have been fun as well.
I do recall that I was in St. Cloud the night that you had the fridge, William the Refrigerator Perry. I'm trying to recall if you've told the story in front of me enough times about going through the drive-thru, or if I was in the car with you for some reason. I might have been in the back seat as you in the fridge went to the drive-thru of Burger King. I don't know.
William the Refrigerator Perry that probably ranks up there too. So William the Refrigerator Perry, number 72, the entire team wore number 72 football jerseys because he was the defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears, but he scored a touchdown as a running back in the Super Bowl. And so we brought in William the Refrigerator Perry. He threw out a football for the first pitch. And after the game, we went to the red carpet, and we had a couple beverages at the red carpet, and he was staying at the Grand Stay, and he said, "Can you give me a ride to the Grand Stay?" And I said, I had a white Oldsmobile Alero that was a 4-door, but it was a smaller car, and the fridge is the reason of his nickname, 375, 400 pounds. And I said, "Fridge, no offense, I don't know if you're going to fit in my car." I didn't know what to say to him. And he said, "No, we'll be fine." And he put the seat all the way back. And he got in the car, and it's midnight, and I'm just chuckling because I'm thinking that I'm going to be driving the fridge around. And so I drive to the Grand Stay, and on the way to the Grand Stay, which is only like 2 blocks from the red carpet, he says, "Let's go to a Burger King, and he wants to eat. And so I knew that there was a McDonald's that was closer. So I said, well, how about a McDonald's? And he said, yeah, let's go to McDonald's. And meanwhile, this is, early cell phone days. I get a phone call from Mark, and he goes, hey, did you end up going out with the fridge? And I say, hang on a second. I put the phone down and I order 3 Big Macs, a French fry, and a Diet Coke. And then I get back on the phone and Mark says, you got to be kidding me. The fridge is in your car. And I'm like, yep, I'll call you after I drop them off. And so the timing of it was unbelievable. He had no idea I had the fridge, but knew I was probably going to order 3 Big Macs and a fry and a Diet Coke at midnight by myself. And he put 2 and 2 together that I was with the fridge. And so those stories, as you're driving home, you're just laughing, thinking, I'm never going to forget these moments by being in the league and the crazy stuff that happens. So I joke that from day one, I should have been writing down like a little black diary book because, and I still haven't done it. I probably could start it at any moment. But 21 years ago, I should have taken notes down daily because it would have been fun for somebody to look at down the road.
This is a total another topic for another podcast. But as I led into that, I really honestly can't remember if I was there with you or not. And I don't think I was at this moment.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I guess it's possible. I even at this moment, but it goes to show our memories, at least my memory. Yeah. I've heard you tell this story enough times where I think I might have been there because I know I was there earlier in the night.
Yeah.
And as a warning to everyone, our memories are susceptible of being off. I don't know if I was in the car with you. It seems like I might have been, but at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah.
And as years go by, we try to remember things, and the way you're retelling these stories are probably fairly accurate. But anytime we ever tell a story, things change. I've learned about memories, and this is correct. We sometimes think it's just like it's a stable thing. We can go back and grab the memory, and it stays the same. No, apparently, by people that study this, you tell a story, that becomes your new memory, even if some facts have been changed. Yeah. And so that's why people's memories of stories change over time. But we think we have it like dead right.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's all another thing.
The story does change. I can see that. It's like going to Alexandria and playing these games up there, and the fans are like, oh, back in the day when the Beatles were around, this place was sold out. It was so much fun. It was crowded. It was jammed. And I think back to myself, I remember a lot of nights where there wasn't more than a couple hundred fans, but it's amazing on what they remember. And they remember those handful of nights that were sold out or jammed, but that's their perception of what that team was like for the first 6 years. And I remember that there's a lot of nights that weren't like that, but that's what people remember. And I think people tend to remember things better than what they actually really were, which is probably pretty cool. And it doesn't matter at this point, but that's one of them that, they felt like the franchise was so successful. And then what went wrong? And so I don't know if it was ever that successful. It had some success, but obviously it wasn't enough, for the team to still be around. So
another thing with memory is oftentimes we're only remembering the things that are attached to an emotion. So you were at the ballpark every game for how many years? So you probably are more emotional about the times that there wasn't anybody there. Like that's a strong emotion for you when there weren't as many people there. And I remember going there after you had left and seeing some of these games too, where it's like, oh, I don't know how this is going to make it much longer because there's just not enough people here. And that's kind of how any business can go. And you've been a part of a few of these franchises over the years. And I guess maybe, is this the only one that you've been with that has the same name in the Northwoods League? What you've been involved
yeah,
with?
really.
Games?
The River Bats, the Lunkers, and the Beatles. We joke, but there's 3 pennants hanging in the office, and it's the Lunkers, the River Bats, and the Beatles, and none of those franchises still exist. So this is the only team that we've worked for that, hasn't had any major changes, I guess.
Let's wind down at least for the moment, the Willmar Stingers and baseball part of this conversation. As the season ended recently, you were in the playoffs again, and we experienced it a couple times together, a couple seasons in Alexandria where we had good teams that didn't win a championship. I've been gone for a long time without a team, but you've had good teams. And did you win one when you were an intern with St. Cloud or whatever on their staff way back in the day?
League championship?
Yes.
I won a league championship or was a part of one in 98 as an intern, the year I interned in St. Cloud.
Have you won one since?
And then we won one in 2007 in St. Cloud.
Okay.
So I've been a part of 2 Northwoods League championships, 98 and 2007, but it's been a long time.
So much of what you do is about making sure people are in the seats, that they're having a good time, they're getting down and talking to all the businesses, getting as many corporate partners as possible to make sure that when the season starts, that people are having a good time, you have good promotions, and you're paying the bills. But when it comes down to it, it's still a baseball game, and your season ended recently. Your team, Stingers finished losing in the semifinals. Season's over. You got that aspect of it. You've got the fact that, okay, another off season ahead. What do you think about this as you look forward to the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the rest of your life? Are you going to keep doing it?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, it's crazy. This is a time of the year where the emotions are up and down. I mean, you asked me this question a month ago, I would have probably given you a different answer. But, as you put your heart and soul into it, and then you're in the middle of it, it's very exhausting. But then you reflect once the season's over, and you start to think about what just happened, and you start to gain a new appreciation for what you're currently doing. And for the next month, I'll feel like I have the best job in the world because it'll be at a way different pace than it's been for the last 4 or 5 months. And I don't see us doing anything else. If we were to ever, sell the Willmar Stingers, I would probably work for a Northwoods League team. Like, I just don't know what else there would be out there that would give us that same satisfaction. So, and I'm sure that's why people stay in positions for a long time in their life, no matter what it is. But I don't really see any other options for us not being a part of the league.
Well, I imagine if you ever go in a different direction, you would be successful because you have the personality and the ambition to be good at something else. I think the same of myself. I've been kind of doing the same thing for a while too, and until I started this, thinking, okay, I gotta use some of my skills, whatever I have, the old broadcasting skills. Right. I got most of my early experience working in Alexandria, just calling games on the radio for 64, 68 times a summer and really getting into it. But at a certain point, I think most people can think, what else can I do? And then if you don't want to be doing what you're doing, what's the approach to get out of it? And I think that can be a difficult thing. And you have a good thing going. So if you're enjoying it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And so, that's probably the one thing is you're so entrenched in it that it's tough to balance that in your life in terms of, once you are the owner operator of any business or a baseball team, it's 24/7. So, but I don't think I would be doing it if I didn't love it. So
I came up with another way related to spending time with you that you've influenced me. I'm not as good as you are, but I remember being in the Beetle House in Alexandria, Minnesota, the after games, or wherever I was with you and maybe some of the coaches, the other staff, the other interns would be hanging out. And all of a sudden, someone would say, where did Vaz go? You, and maybe I'm letting a secret out of the bag here, you have this, I don't know where it comes from, you have this, to me, very unique timing and ability to not say goodbye, not feel the need to say, hey, I'm going to see you tomorrow. In a lot of cases, you'll just disappear. It'd be like a magic trick. You'll be there and then you'll be gone, and you don't say goodbye. And I really like it and I appreciate it. Every once in a while, I use it because I grew up with, I don't know if it's the German or the Polish upbringing where the goodbyes are so damn long sometimes. Yeah. Where it lasts as long as the time at the party, I think in some cases. It's kind of nice just to go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that probably still happens. I think of after some home games, and I don't know. It's I don't really know the reason behind it, but I think I look back at this past summer, and if we had 36 home games, I probably did a formal goodbye for 12 of them, and for 15 of them, I just disappeared and got in the car and took off. And maybe it's a little bit of enough is enough, and I got to get away because you're so entrenched in it that's the only real time you have. I don't try to do it necessarily to be rude, but the exit could be a long ordeal. The nights are long the way it is. A lot of times I have a long drive ahead of me, and so I'm just like, forget it. I'm out of here. Everything's taken care of. I got to go. And so enough is enough at some point.
I love it. I do it sometimes. I think it's a tidbit from this conversation that that others might be able to take from it and maybe put to use in their life occasionally when the timing's right. Because when you've decided you want to leave, that's the decision you made. You want to leave. You didn't decide, I don't think usually goes, you decide you want to leave and then spend X number of minutes leaving. No, it's time to go.
Right,
so go.
Exactly. And a lot of times I think it's just because it's been a long day.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't show up at somebody's house for a half hour and then just walk out. But if you'd been at the ballpark at 9 o'clock in the morning and it's 11:30 at night, and you know that you might have an hour drive or you have a 4-game homestand, I'm kind of like, okay, enough is enough. Like, we got to get ready for tomorrow. And, we've been here for 16 hours. So
I have a personal growth segment and a being wrong segment I want to get to, but I will. And this is typically, I'm doing the interviewing. I'm asking the questions. I'm curious about all these things. You're still in my life occasionally. And something about the goodbyes, I think, relate to that, where even when I was here last week, I saw you, I got in another conversation, didn't see you anymore, but it's like, it's okay. I'll see him again. I'll talk to him again. I never worry about that with people in my life. I've known you for a long time. I talk to you less and less, I suppose, but it's always the same. Every conversation we have, it feels the same as before. I'm never offended by not talking to you or someone for a long time. And I'd hope that other people aren't offended if I don't talk to them for a long time, because to me, that's how it works. It doesn't need to be a goodbye, because there'll be a next time until, unfortunately, hopefully years from now, there won't be. But there's always going to be a next time. And I think it kind of runs together.
No, I've just really enjoyed I think you hit it on the head in terms of the interaction that we've had over the years. I kind of like it because you're always continuing to have an ongoing conversation, and we might go 3 or 4 years and not communicate, but every once in a while, one of us will kind of resurface and strike up the conversation again. And I think you text me maybe 3 or 4 months ago and say, "Hey, did you forget about me?" And you know what? It probably had been a couple years, and who knows? I might have sent that text to you 2 years prior to that. So, having long, kind of lasting relationships with people that you come across and trying to continue to build that network and massage your network, because all the people that you come across over the course of a lifetime, I think, are very influential, and that to never shut the door, because you just never know what's going to happen ahead of you. So I've always tried to just engage with a lot of people and try to keep as many doors open as possible, and probably have done that better with some than others.
And I think of it now, the reason I would have reached out to you some months ago is because I had Matt Jones on the podcast, episode 22. This will be episode 45. So what's that, 21 weeks ago? That's a fairly long time, but that was a person we both know. Yep. And I wanted to make sure you knew that I saw him and could take in that podcast episode. And it's one of the reasons I'm doing this and pushing through. It's like you've had a big part of my life, less lately, but this is a part of who I am, comes from knowing you, and now I get to showcase you to anyone that comes across this piece of audio or video. Right. And I think you're worth knowing, worth hearing from, and it's exciting for me that I get to circle back to some of the people from my life and bring them out to a group of people that would have never heard would never heard of you.
I think the segment's great. I think it's great. I mean, because you got a lot of different people that, you talk a little bit about, some of your ideas of who you're going to put together to be with you in the future. I think it's great. It's a great way to continue to be in touch with people and introduce people that, have been a part of your life.
So Ryan, let's get to the personal growth segment. I've, in recent years, probably as you've known me less, really focused on trying to find ways to improve myself, to be a better person in whatever possible ways. What have you done? You can go back years ago if you want to, but I think if there's something that you're really focused on more recently that you think is valuable to you and valuable to share.
Yeah, I think, I think everything is, as you get older, you start to, you mature, and it's all about balance in your life. And in terms of how are you as a husband? How are you as a father? How are you as a coworker? How are you as a business partner? Like, just trying to check the boxes in all those categories and trying to do a better job of all of them. And it's tough, I think, no matter what you're doing in life. But in terms of the balancing act that we try to do, and in this position, it can be kind of overwhelming and encompassing at times to be able to balance and try to create a better balance of it. I mean, there's people that joke that I never answer my phone. Well, it just so happens that those are the people that are calling, and it just happens to be 5 out of 5 times the timing hasn't been right. Like if my wife is in like mid-conversation, I can't take a call from Nick, our general manager, which I probably should because he might need something. But you know what? It's not fair. Like I try to balance it and to keep everybody happy and do the right thing. And that's probably the one thing that I've learned is like, how do I not let this job, which I love, take over my entire life and try to have the balance.
That's something I've noticed. Lately, I've been doing a lot of social things, going places, seeing people. And probably not to the extreme of you having so many individuals involved with the organization and people in the community and people in your family and other friends reaching out to you. It's hard to keep up with every person that reaches out immediately. I think I focus on really doing a good job of it, not like letting messages go totally unanswered. But I recognize people are busy in different ways to varying degrees, and it is a huge challenge to always respond and not somehow forget the one person that reached out to you at a time where you just weren't focused on remembering it. And I think with you, in the few times, even when we're kind of setting this up, I knew you weren't like blowing me off. I just figured I'd if I was curious, I'd just shoot another message and you'll get back to me. But I think sometimes people might take that personally.
Yeah.
And they don't need to. I mean, maybe sometimes it is personal in cases, but just if you have a good relationship with someone, it's not hard to follow back up again, and it'll sort itself out, I think, when there's enough time.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's trying to prioritize and keep all the things in motion can be tricky, but no, I agree with you.
How about we move to the Being Wrong segment now, Ryan? In this segment, I focus on people that have changed their minds. What I've changed my mind about has led to this podcast becoming a thing, and a lot of the topics. I'm curious for you. Is there a big thing from your life that you've radically changed your mind or your actions towards that also you find is worth sharing?
Yeah, no, you mentioned to me a little bit about this, and I guess I've just, in terms of being wrong, I've gained kind of an appreciation of all people. Like, I would say over the years, as I mentioned, whether it's trying to, have a balancing act of priorities and things in your life. But I think over the years, I've seen people all as kind of equals. And so when you're younger and you're more naive, I look at it from our fan standpoint. And I mean, we have a collage of different fans. I mean, you have mom and dad, you have business owner, you have a lot of people with disabilities, and these people are some of the biggest baseball fans in the world. And so I just think I've looked at people in general with a different perspective by being in the people business because of the interactions that I've had with them over the year. And I don't think if I hadn't been in this position, I probably would have created other types of opinions. But quite honestly, being in this world and being in baseball and fun and family entertainment, you see people from all different walks of life. And it's pretty refreshing in terms of each and every fan. There isn't one person at the ballpark that you wouldn't want to high five and celebrate, a Stingers win or just a fun night at the ballpark. So I think I've learned to embrace all people, because of the ballpark and the experiences they've had.
And I'd imagine with the wealth of opportunities to do that, and I have similar situations, say when I'm picking up people with my Uber and my Lyft gig, the different types of people, and not always do I have a conversation, but sometimes finding a way to have a conversation with someone that in whatever way is unlike most people you've had conversations with, and finding a way to be engaging. Whether some people are just, maybe they're shy and they don't talk a lot, but you still want to like get to know them a little bit if they're willing. It's a challenge, but not one that, because someone is different, unlike people you usually talk to in whatever way, and there's all kinds of possible ways it might be, it doesn't mean you don't try. Maybe sometimes it don't, but it doesn't mean you never try. You find ways to connect with people. And I love, especially when I do connect with people that I in some way see as very different.
Yep.
I think those are some of the most joyful moments of my life when I'm connecting with someone that I didn't know I can connect with this person, and I can, and it's awesome.
Right. Yeah. No. It's very cool. And I mean, if it's Uber or Lyft, I mean, you know, let's face it, you might want to just give somebody a ride from point A to point B, but these people can fill out a survey and they give you stars as to what kind of interaction you had and how clean your car is. And so you're forced to try to interact with them, and it's enjoyable. Like you figure out a way to meet somebody or learn something, and that sure beats not saying anything and kind of keeping to yourself where there's just awkward silence. But I've always thought that was interesting with Uber and Lyft versus taxi. Uber and Lyft forces people to be friendlier than, a taxi where you hand them your credit card and you hope to never say a word. And now if there's no word said in an Uber or a Lyft, it almost seems awkward. So it's like the opposite of the way things used to be from that segment. So I've had some great conversations. You get out of the car with somebody that's an Uber or Lyft, and you think you're friends with them, and then you walk out and you go get on your plane, and you're like, oh, it was a great conversation. I'll never see that person again or talk to them. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting conversation about their granddaughter who was in, some Christmas play, and it was a woman that was telling about her granddaughter that was at her Christmas play in the morning, and you connected, but, you'll never see him again.
It's a joyful moment to connect, but also it's a life skill, and not everyone has job or whatever other situations that allow for the constant seemingly random interactions. But knowing that you do in a lot of ways, and I have in a lot of ways, it is a skill to build. Like how can I? And sometimes people get in my car and they don't have. I can tell they don't want to talk, and then I don't. And it's not, I say hi, I'm pleasant, drop them off, it's fine. But sometimes I think people just aren't very skilled at connecting with someone they don't know, and then it becomes a challenge to me, if possible, to maybe make it engaging. Right. And it is a fun activity if you're willing to possibly be slightly uncomfortable for a moment trying to figure things out.
Right. No, I agree 100%. So it's I think over time, people become more and more. You got to put yourself out there and try to be engaged with somebody you have no idea. And that's, one of the things that I've gotten better at and I've really enjoyed is having conversations with people that you may not have anything in common with. So, and
then you maybe find out you do have some things in common because you're both human, and whatever other things will start to connect if you talk a little bit more. Ryan, thank you.
No, thank you.
This has been a lovely day sitting outside by the lake. What lake is this, by the way?
Nest Lake.
Nest Lake. Yeah. Well, it's a gorgeous day sitting out here having this conversation, and I really think it will and hope that it does reach some people. And I guess the person that's reaching right now and have an impact because you've had an impact in my life. So
appreciate it. Thanks, Curt.
Thank you for listening to People I Know Show. Links are in the show notes for the Facebook and Instagram pages and YouTube channel. Be sure to check those out for other content related to the People I Know Show podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, take a minute, please, to rate and review this show. Leave comments or messages for me elsewhere, including sending an email to me, Curt Carstensen, using the email address peopleiknowshow@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.